How's it going, Couch Crew? It is, wow, 2025 already. We've hit the end of the year, and we've been through a lot of games. More than I thought I would until I started streaming a lot more. So to celebrate the year 2024, in our Twitch and YouTube journey, I am going to talk about my top 5 best and shame games that we've been through this year. Now I do want to disclaim, what does this mean? Is this all just games in 2024? Not really. Our little spin on this is these are games that I have played for the first time in 2024. So generally this means that even if a game came out around 10 years or so ago, but I never played it, then it counts for this list. I don't have all the time or money in the world to keep up with everything. If you have a Steam backlog, you know. Anyways, this is just my opinion, and anyone is welcome to not agree with me, even if it's on the shame list. I could still recommend it with a little disclaimer at all. Games are meant to be played and enjoyed. If one doesn't turn out the way you want it, doesn't mean it's unplayable. Hell, you might even warm up to it. And real people do work on these things, so there's always that to keep in mind. So, starting off with number 5 on our shame list. The Spirit and the Mouse. There isn't much to say about The Spirit and the Mouse. You're an adorable mouse, and you're gifted with powers through an accident. You run around a fairly open world, listening in to the problems of others, and do your best with the said powers to make their lives better. As someone who enjoys mice, rats, and just your run-of-the-mill creature, I looked into this game with a bit of excitement. Running around as a mouse and just doing mouse things. What's to really dislike? Well, it's just very basic and simple, which isn't bad, but it's just a collectathon. The platforming is mildly janky, but there isn't much else to explore out of the 4 or so areas the game has around. It doesn't really offer much more than collect more, do more things, or get a new ability. I'm glad I played it, but there's more to be desired, I would say. And now for our top 5. Fatal Frame, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. Now, if you're new here, or familiar with my streams, then you know we love to play survival horror games. And the Fatal Frame series, especially the ports to the Steam, were definitely a good addition to the library, all things considered. Fatal Frame 4 takes place on, you guessed it, a haunted and cursed island. While we always had whimsically funny jokes about the girls looking way too good for the situation they were in, the game does a very good job at keeping you on your toes and just giving you the creeps by existing. At a certain point, it does kind of stick to a formula where some kind of ghost shows up and shows you the way, only to just try and jump scare you after. Aside from that, there were some genuine moments that jump scared me pretty good, and the story itself had some really good twists that kept me pretty engaged and wanting to play more. And of course, it gave me one of my now more favorite characters in games, Choshiro Kirishima, the man, the myth, the MILF machine. You had to be there. Shame game number 4. Convergence, a League of Legends story. A League of Legends story is exactly what it is. I'm not a League player and don't really have much experience with it outside of my friends who do. Arcane and 2XKO. Can't wait for that to come out. And all I definitely enjoyed out of all those games is Echo. So naturally, I was pushed towards this game. It's a Metroidvania and a story about the boy. The story is an AU, pretty neat with a lot of perspective and Zon, but while in spirit this game is a Metroidvania, it doesn't really have too much out and around to make use of other abilities for secrets and exploration, as it can be completed in a reasonable amount of time. Bonus points for this game for having a decent colorblind feature though, as there are some areas that just have a lot of red against red. And also, if you don't know, I personally have trouble seeing many hues of red, which is something I can appreciate. Overall, with a $30 price tag, I can only in good conscience say, if you really want to check this game out, get it on sale. Yo, who wrote this crap? I sure hope I said number 4 instead of number 3. Top game number 4. Signalis. Don't forget your promise. Words that will echo throughout your head in the vast emptiness of space and replica units, plagued by space COVID. In ways you can sort of relate to this top-down, Dead Space-esque survival horror. But what really helps this game stand out from all the other sort of survival horror games is its artistic theme. As everything in space and this universe at this point is either run by like Space Germany, China, and Russia, to a degree, It's akin to like if you were watching a very artsy foreign movie without subtitles, but somehow you were able to understand everything all the same. The angles, the scenes, the tension are all brought together by our silent Elster unit, just looking for her lost partner. A wonderful story of art, love, and fear bringing together this game into a wonderful experience that all came together. Shame game number 3. Hollow Body. This sure is a conflicting one. I came across this game before it was released and everything about it seemed interesting. As it sat on my wish list for quite a while before release, I eagerly awaited when it would finally come out. And it did. Everything felt classically clunky at first, and the enemies were very simplistic that would make an OG RE1 zombie seem like a menace. And it was kinda buggy. Like, example-wise, you'd beat the game and load a new game plus. You would start off with your previous game's inventory. Also, the puzzles are basically non-existent outside of the very first one, which was pretty much perfect for a noir survival horror game. But they ended up just turning into find the missing thing to progress, but it's just kind of a thing that's just out of the way. In defense for the game though, this game is created by a solo developer, and he has added a lot more to this game post-launch. I'd still say it's worth playing if you can grab it on sale at the very least. If you want to hear more about my thoughts on this game though, I do have a review of it in my playlist. Top game number 3. Silent Hill 2 Remake. The game in our special little place in Silent Hill. It has been like 2 months since this game came out, and for others it probably has fallen off. For the die-hard fans, it's their game of the year. Personally, I think it's still good, and I'm still speedrunning it on our speedrun Sundays. As a fan of Silent Hill overall, what else is there for me to say that everyone hasn't? The sound design blows everything out of the water and really brings out the unsettling experience of the town. Even though the combat really can get repetitive after a while, especially the melee and abundance of mannequins, I speedrun the game, so that feeling has kinda not really been on my mind past the first few playthroughs. I have hope that maybe they'll give us Maria's extra story or something else in the future, but I consider this game a success, so we can only hope that if there are any more remakes from this series that Bloober can do them just as much justice as they've done with this. Overall, a great experience. Shame game number 2. Blazblue Entropy Effect. I forgot I even played this game. While Blazblue has been a beloved series to me, along with Guilty Gear, it was interesting to hear that it was having some kind of roguelike game. I like roguelikes. I like Blazblue. What could honestly go wrong? Well, a lot of it really didn't spark anything. It's like a mixture of a different game that's just modded or skinned Blazblue characters and abilities on top of it. The gameplay itself was cool, that you would be using characters' abilities in a very free-form fashion, and even changing their properties with different forms and power-ups. But the Blazblue characters in this setting just still don't really fit in as I kept trying to play it. I really would have just liked to see an original cast of characters and build them up to get attached to, rather than my pre-existing feelings of a character that's not even really the character. But it also got boring real fast to me, that I just couldn't even really push myself to do more than I already did, which was a shame. They have, however, added co-op and other stuff lately, so I may perhaps try that in 2025. Top game number 2. Noita. The very definition of find out at your earliest convenience. A game that hates you and wants you to suffer from every possible pixel imaginable as a roguelike. While also, on the other hand, so many possible combinations of spells and wands and perks have so many outcomes, it's truly mind-blowing. No wonder why it took an easy 250 hours of my time for a couple months. You're just a lone wizard and just have a destination to go further and further into the world. But at a certain point, you realize there's so much more to the world to explore. I cannot sing this game's praises enough for how clever and vast it is. There's so many terrifying surprises and things to check out, it really can get addicting once you really start building things with a bit more intent. I mean, I risked my very first win on what's essentially turning my wand into a chaos magic RNG machine. The game has so much mystery and open-endedness, it really has you craving for more. Also, it has a very awesome soundtrack that's very reminiscent of Risk of Rain. Definitely worth the money in terms of time if you're the type to consider that. Shame game number 1. Gal Guardians Demon Purge. Boy oh boy, this is definitely a story. My friend Alucard47 and I were Anime NYC in 2023, which is around November. Inti Creates was there and they had a demo out for this game. We looked at each other and were like, oh, a co-op game? Metroidvania? Castlevania vampire hunting vibes? Holy crap, we need to try this game out. And so later into 2024, we did it on stream. For starters, this game does not support online co-op and only has local co-op. And what you can do is a remote to play session to play it online. It wasn't good, but we managed to get everything in a playable state. But getting back to it, co-op has a lot of jank tech, because in single player, you swap between the girls in a Portrait of Ruin manner, and proceed as usual. In co-op, you're both on the field at the same time, and can run on top of each other, use your heads as a double jump, and reach areas you really aren't able to until you do the second half. But otherwise, we found the first half of the game very fun. And then the second half happens. Along with the true ending, I'm not going to get into it, but this is a if you know Galgun, you know sort of thing. And everything going onward with the game's story and all really just took a nosedive. I currently have 3 episodes of our playthrough in a playlist, and we'll be finishing uploading them soon. So if you don't want to put yourself through this game, feel free to experience ours. Also, there's a sequel coming out. We've decided we will not be learning our lesson and go in with a much more steeled resolve. Top game number 1. Crow Country. Five Nights at Freddy's, but a crow-themed amusement park, and also a survival horror. Crow Country here is taking our number 1 slot of the year of games we've played. Even after contemplating the list, I already knew this was number 1 for me. Right off the bat, you can tell this game has a unique aesthetic, something along the lines of a Lego meets Moral Oral into Resident Evil. And it all works incredibly well. In many areas that, like Hollow Body, tries to be a love letter to survival horror games, Crow Country just does it better. There are very clever puzzles laid out throughout the park, different solutions, and a decent amount of RNG that you don't hate it too much. And speedrunning this game is incredibly fun. Short enough to keep repeating runs often without being too draining when you know where to go. The story starts off fairly basic, but becomes a huge web of conspiracy and lies that, depending on how you engage yourself with it, the results of your ending can differ, and it can kinda hurt if you feel attached to the lore or characters. There's also interesting events you may or may not come across depending on how you move around that gives the game plenty of replayability. You get rewards for high rank endings and finding collectibles, which gives it a lot of replayability in an old school manner, which is why out of everything new I've played in 2024, this takes the number 1 slot. Thanks for watching this video if you're making it to the end. This year has been overly successful personally, along with our growth in just getting videos out. I'm hoping to reach out to more of you and have an even better 2025. But until then, rest easy couch crew. We'll see you later.